What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're going to do a comparison of the Magic Square Lord of War with the Zeta Toys Bruticon. Both versions of a Masterpiece Scale G1 Bruticus. So these came out a few years apart. This we just got February 2026, and this one came out in October of 2022. So roughly 3 years and some change apart. This guy, however, is a retool and repaint of their original figure, Armageddon, which was released as individual figures that combined into Armageddon or Bruticus. Then they re-released that same figure, but with G1 colors, G1 paint, metallic paint. Then they released it a second time with this new diecast chest. It is full diecast, by the way, and a new head designed to look more like the Toon, and repainted feet, waist, and thighs, and chest, all done to match the G1 cartoon. This has been a long-standing, top-of-the-line G1 Bruticus for a while, until this guy came out. So I think a lot of people are interested in this comparison. As I always mentioned, I try to be as objective as possible with these, but of course there's subjectivity involved when you're comparing things like this. So if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really do this comparison to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, including getting both of them if you've got the space and the money for it. Now, I recently realized I've got kind of two viewers on these. One is viewers who've already made their decision, they've already made their purchase, and they're really just here for the entertainment value. Just to see, my thoughts, my opinion. And I get that, right? It's just, who's going to win type of thing. What's the race to the finish. And the other customer are people who haven't made a purchase, and maybe they're new to the Masterpiece or third-party game, and they don't really know that much about these figures, and they're looking to buy one. So hopefully this helps you out in whichever position you're in. I have a couple caveats with this comparison, so I'm going to just say them up front. Number one, both of them come with translucent eyes. This one has a light up feature that lights it up. This one doesn't. In theory, you can add your own lights, but it didn't come with it. So I painted this one way back in the day and decided to paint this one as well because I wanted it to have metallic red eyes. So just discount that as we go through. They did not come with metallic red eyes, but both of them have it, so we can kind of, call it even. The other thing, and this is kind of a, it screws with the comparison, but this guy, in order to get it, you had to buy the 5 figures, which came with the Toy Deco parts or the IDW parts. And then you had to buy this Toon Deco set. So now you've got 2 sets of parts for combined mode. And that is going to count during the accessories because they are combined mode accessories. So we're only really going to count combined mode accessories. This guy does have some, but he's got a ton of individual robot accessories, which we're not going to look at because they're not for this guy, right? So I just want to say that up front, that is going to affect the accessories category as well as the price category, right? Because we got to include the price of that Toon set for Magic Square. All right, with all that being said, let's get started, and we'll start with accessories. All right, here's a representation of the accessories that come with the Magic Square and the Zeta Toys accessories. I couldn't get all the combined mode parts on the table, but it comes with an alternate chest piece, alternate feet, alternate pants, alternate cannons for the back, and all of that helps to convert it into the IDW combined mode. For the Zeta Toys, we get the gun, and we get missiles for the cannons on his back. And they actually fire. It's a spring-loaded mechanism. Now, this is really tough for me to decide, but I got to give it to Zeta. I feel like even though this is a whole set to allow you to convert it, the fact that they've got the gun is like a glaring miss from the Magic Square set. That you have to buy either a separate Shockwave figure or 3D print a gun. But because of that, I think I'm going to give it to Zeta. Next, we'll talk about the gimmicks on these two. And the Zeta Toys actually has a built-in light up feature, but it also has a built-in voice with voice clips from Bruticus from the original G1 cartoon. It also has firing missiles up here. I didn't mention the accessories, but they actually fire. So it could have just sat in there. But there's a spring-loaded mechanism. There's actually other weapons that fire, but I'm not going to include them here. The Magic Square does not have light up eyes. It does have a space to put an LED, but it didn't come with it. So there's not really, a gimmick there. There's not really any gimmicks, to be honest. I guess you could call the swap out combiner parts a gimmick, but I already kind of gave that to them for the accessories. So I'm going to call it for Zeta Toys on gimmick. All right, next we'll talk about the cartoon accuracy and sculpt. And we'll put the G1 image there so you can take a look for yourself. When it comes to cartoon accuracy, I think Magic Square really nailed it. And that's what they were going for. The Zeta Toys, they did do this re-release to try to get closer. And the chest and the head sculpt are definitely better or closer than the original. However, the rest of the body was never intended to be G1, right? This is not even a Jeep, right? It's a Humvee. And this is a tank that is not the tank that Brawl was. It's a different tank. Same for Blastov, same for Vortex, same for Onslaught. They all are kind of modified, slightly updated versions, mainly to match the IDW, but definitely not originally designed to be more G1. Then they repainted it, and I think the repaint definitely gets it closer. Especially the colors they did here, that's really going for the tune. But the sculpt and the overall look doesn't get you there. So I'm going to give cartoon accuracy to Magic Square. When it comes to the sculpt of the figures, I think the Zeta Toys definitely looks meaner. He looks more like a brawler. He looks more just intimidating. But it's very uncleanly. There's a lot of stuff hanging off. On the arms, you'll see he's got panels and wings. Same for Vortex. You got a lot of panels and wings on this guy. Even for, let's come to the back here, even for Swindle, we've got like an axle and pieces and parts. It does look cool. And I think people, appreciate that kind of thing when that was a hot thing in the Masterpiece third-party game, right? It was all this extra detail. But now it just stands out, right? It just stands out as extra parts hanging off of him. Same for this, right? It's just extra parts hanging off his arms and hanging off his back. So I'm going to give Sculpt over to Magic Square as well. It's just such a clean, well-done figure. I do think it doesn't look as intimidating as the Zeta. But because it's so well done and it just cleans up so well, it ends up being a better sculpt, at least in my opinion. And the other thing is, and I kind of didn't really talk about this, but the head on Zeta is really small. And it really stands out now that we're looking at the Magic Square because this head proportion is a lot better compared to this. But it actually looks like it's too small. So I'm going to give Sculpt over to Magic Square. All right, next we'll talk about the paint on these two. And in this department, both are pretty much 100% painted. The Magic Square is fully painted. Now, the original Legend scale version of this wasn't. So they had to do that for the Masterpiece. I think it was their first time fully painting figures. And it shows, there was a little bit of missteps here and there. For example, the Onslaught figure had some blotchy paint in certain areas. The Brawl figure on some areas, as well as the Vortex, both had some blotchy paint spots or areas where it just didn't look quite even. They also use it's gloss, but it's a plain paint. Whereas the Zeta Toys use this metallic paint. And it looks spectacular. It's a very attractive paint. It also stands up to the test of time. There's no blotchiness on it. I don't have any scratches or anything after articulating and posing it. So I'm going to give paint over to Zeta Toys. All right, now we'll talk about the build quality on these two. And both of them are pretty good. The Magic Square comes together pretty solid. It's got some nice ratchet joints, nice articulation, and solid pieces. The only thing that's not solid, I'd say, is the vortex arm. This one, when you articulate the arm, especially the ratchet joint here, it kind of rocks this, and sometimes it falls off because that connection point is not great. I did a couple of fix videos on how to improve that. But that was about the only issue I had with this guy. Now, individual robots is a different story, but just talking about combined mode, I think pretty solid. Comes to Zeta. Zeta wrote the book on solid combiners, right? They really are the ones that set the trend in third party for how to do it, how to include ratchet joints, how to get it to be solid, how to have separate combiner parts. So I don't really have any issues with this guy either in combined mode. However, the individual robots definitely have issues. And we're not talking about the individual robots today. I just wanted to mention that, they definitely have a build problem when it comes to the individual figures. But I'm going to give them a tie on build quality. Both of them work just fine, and I don't really have any issues other than the thing I mentioned on here. But even then, it still poses and works well as a combiner. All right, next we'll take a look at the articulation. In order to do that, we have to articulate each one individually. And these are big figures. This guy in particular is very heavy. It's got a lot of die cast up here. So I'm going to do my best to show it to you. But I might just take it easy so they don't fall over. But let's start with Magic Square. The head is on a ball joint. Gets down to there, back to there. Rotates around. You get a little bit of side to side, but not much. So I don't know if I would count that. Shoulders can rotate around. This guy is pretty light, by the way. On a ratchet joint, all the way around. Out to the side, up to there. You have a rotation here at the bicep on a ratchet joint. You have a bend at the elbow on a ratchet, a little past 90 on that. For the wrist, you have a wrist rotation. You have an in and out bend at the wrist. Individually articulated fingers at 1, 2, 3 pins. There is a splay out joint at the base of the finger, which allows you to get this kind of movement. Thumb is on a ball joint and 2 pins. These are some of the best hands we've gotten, although I wish they gave us more because we didn't get another set with the Tune set. We only got feet and not hands. Coming down to the waist, we get a waist rotation on a ratchet. We also get an ab crunch. It's very hard, but you can get it out and he can bend over. Double jointed ab crunch. Gets you down in there. Like I mentioned, it's very, very tight. I think they loosened it up on this one compared to the Toon Deco set, but it's still incredibly tight. Coming down the legs, we get a... Just notice this is falling down, but you have a leg kick up to there. It does have a drop down hinge and the hip skirt moves with it. I think that's a good way to do it. Back to here. The leg does move independent of the hip skirt, so you have to put it back when you're done. Hip skirt on the back and the side. Leg will kick out to there. I just noticed this keeps popping out, so I might not have something right here, but you have a double jointed knee. It goes up to there, but if you drop down the knee, there's a little button right here, so you can extend out the double joint, and then with that you can get it all the way bent. So you have a double jointed knee, which is unusual on most combiners. You can't do that. Get that pop back in. There we go. You just have to get that joint popped back out. There we go. Coming out of the feet, you have ankle tilts out to there. And you have a toe tilt built in here. It's on a double hinge, so you can get that forward and bent. Head is on a rotating spool. It gets forward and backward and rotates around. No side to side. Shoulders rotate around on ratchet joint. This is what I mean by the individual figures sometimes just start falling apart on you. Out to the side on a double jointed ratchet. It still gets you kind of the same thing, but it gives you a little bit more adjustment. There is a double joint here. You can see things are just popping off. I had a wing fly off. I'll just leave that off for now. You have a single joint elbow. It's a little hindered. You just got to get everything out of the way. Get you up to there, 90 degrees, just about. Rotation at the bicep on a friction joint. You have a rotation at the wrist, in and out movement at the wrist. Individually articulated fingers at 3 pins. No splay out on the fingers on this one, so that one has a slight edge there. We have ball jointed thumb, or not ball jointed, a hinged thumb with 2 pins. So the fingers are pretty much the same, and the hands are pretty close, but that gets a slightly more because you got the splay out joint, but it's pretty darn close, to be honest. And like I mentioned before, build quality, things start popping out and coming off as you're messing with it. Continuing down the waist, you have a waist rotation way around. Ab crunch built in. It's a single joint ab crunch that gets you about up to there. So not that far. You do an ab crunch, it's just not double jointed like the Magic Square. For the legs, you have a hip skirt on the front and back. It does have a sliding joint here for the hips, which is to help you balance. It doesn't really provide articulation, it's really for balance, but the legs go up to there. They're very heavy, so you need a strong ratchet. More things are popping off. Back to there, and out to the side on a ratchet. Rotation at the thigh around universal. I forgot to mention that one has a rotation too. You have a single jointed knee on this one. Gets you 90 degrees. There is a little cool feature here. You've got a little piston that comes popping out. That's kind of neat. Ankle tilts and a toe tilt up. Basically one click on this foot. So after that workout, and I'm going to have to repair some joints on this because some things are coming out, but I'm going to give it to Magic Square. They've got the double jointed knee, the extra articulation in the hand, and the double jointed ab crunch. All right, next we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to transformation, I find the Magic Square much more enjoyable. They have really fun, intuitive transformations that translated well into the Masterpiece. They did obviously added some hardware and changed some things, but overall the transformation is pretty fun. When it comes to the Zeta toys, not fun. These individual modes are kind of a nightmare. There's lots of panels and things that flip, and it just doesn't feel intuitive, and it's not fun. So I'm going to give transformation over to Magic Square. When it comes to engineering, they're both really similar. And honestly, I think Magic Square basically copied Zeta's homework. Right? They both got the slide-on feet. They've both got the pants section, which slides onto the legs on both cases. This one kind of sandwiches around, but they're both kind of the same in that aspect. They both have the chest piece, which has this front section, and then you insert the onslaught into there and then collapse the head on top and tab it in. And they're both that exact same way. So I'm going to give them a tie in engineering. They really did it very similarly. I do think the execution is different in certain areas, but overall the design and engineering is very close. So I'll give them a tie. All right, next we'll talk about the cost on these two. And we're not going to go into alt modes on this comparison. This is really only about the combined modes. But I might forget to take out the category from the listing there. So if you see that there, just ignore that. But the cost, we're going to use the prices from ages 3 and up since they don't monkey with it after the fact. And this one is interesting. The Magic Square, 2 of the figures come out to $150. And then the other 2 are $143 each. Then we've got the Onslaught, which is $250. And then we've got the combiner parts, which is another $120. And the total price is kind of astronomical. It's $945 for all the parts that I mentioned. Whereas the Zeta toys, it's $400 original retail. And then using the inflation calculator in today's money, that would be $440. Now, just for the sake of argument, because I know I'm going to get the comment, I decided to look this guy up on Show Z Store. And the price difference between the US or Canada and China is like astronomical. It's actually $784 on Show Z's website compared to $945. So over almost $200 difference in price. Either way, it doesn't matter. Zeta Toys is going to win on price regardless. And the final factor in this category is the Members' Choice category, where I ask my members which one they prefer just based on their own personal preferences and no other factors. And Magic Square is going to win that one. Not a surprise. What's really weird is when you put them next to each other, Zeta's head looks really small. I never noticed it before. It never really was a comment by anybody, but now that we have them together, it definitely looks that way. And I think that definitely turns people off of it and why Magic Square won the Members' Choice category. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score. And Magic Square is going to win this one by just 1 point. Really close. And it's interesting when you look at the categories that Zeta Toys won. Accessories, gimmicks, paint, and cost. And the cost thing, it's just 1 point in my comparison. But it's a significant cost difference, right? $300 if you're buying from Chinese stores and $400 to $500 if you're buying from U.S. retail. That's a big price difference for these guys. Now, me personally, I was planning to get this set because I really like the individual modes. And now that I have the QTG Studios set for the combined mode, it's almost a no-brainer for me to hold on to this because I ended up with 2 sets, right? But for the average consumer, I'm not sure it's worth the upgrade, right? I can't answer that question for you. You really have to answer that question for yourself. But I don't know. I don't know if the average consumer thinks it's worth the upgrade. I am curious what you guys think. So leave your comments below. Let me know if you are planning to upgrade, or if you never bought this and you're going with Magic Square, or if you're planning to just stick with Zeta. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
TM Reviews. What's up, YouTube fans?